All righty. Good morning. We are on the 12th day of hearing in OCC 24683 on well plugging and uh, financial assurance. My name is Felicia Orth, hearing officer appointed by the commission. We have come to another public comment opportunity. I do see three names on the list for this morning. Just a few things about public comment. I will ask you to spell your first and last name. I will ask you, pursuant to commission rules, to swear or affirm to tell the truth. And I will ask you to keep your comments to 3 minutes. If you have more to say to the board, please put those comments in writing and send them to Sheila Apodaca, the commission administrator. So do we have Bob McGonigal on the platform? Okay. Mr. McGonigal, can you unmute yourself?
Can you hear me now?
Yes, thank you. Would you spell your first and last name for the transcript, please?
My name is Robert McGonigal. It's Robert. My last name is MC, capital Gonigle.
Thank you. Do you swear or affirm to tell the truth?
I do swear, so help me God.
Thank you. I will start your time.
Good morning. And again, thank you for letting me speak at this commission. Today, my name is Bob McGonigal. I'm a native of Las Cruces, New Mexico. My mother's family goes back to the mid-1800s here in the Mesilla Valley. Actually, my great-grandfather, born in Mesilla, was able to obtain a physician's license. His name was Anthony Montero. They called him Mateo. He was known as a stagecoach doctor because he was able to obtain a physician's license. He actually worked on Billy the Kid in Mesilla in the late 1800s. But as for me, I'm a graduate of NMSU. I'm a retired small business owner of an independent insurance agency called McGonigal Insurance here in Las Cruces. I spent about 40 years in the business, and my father actually started here as an Allstate agent in 1955. But we're here today to talk about the oil industry, which provides three essentials of life: food, water, and shelter. The industry provides direct revenue to my state, which helps fund teachers, first responders, infrastructure, food, water, and home heating. The oil and gas industry employs over 15% of New Mexico's population. This helps the growth of our gross domestic product. Also, these employees spend their paychecks right here in New Mexico. As a retired small business owner who employed 7 to 10 people, I want to keep small business in New Mexico strong. My small business would not have survived being overregulated and assessed, such as the oil industry would be required to pay. Education, travel expenses are a common cost of small business, not to mention insurance costs. The oil and gas well owners already have a big expense, especially commercial general liability insurance. Liability insurance protects small business owners and me. It would pay should the oil rig operation have a mishap. It would pay bodily injury, death, or property damage caused by their operations. Plus, it's not getting any cheaper to pay for the cost of insurance. The oil industry does not want to cause any harm to anyone and already are taking precautions as they do not want any claims. Regulators want to charge an additional assurance fee, which I don't understand when they're already paying insurance premiums, I should say. As the insurance policy premium is, and adding more assessments, testing regulations will not be beneficial for New Mexico. New Mexico depends on oil and gas revenue, and adding additional overhead to this industry would most definitely cause a decline in our GDP. But I want to thank the commission for your understanding that oil and gas production needs to remain high here in New Mexico. I want to thank you again for your time.
Thank you, Mr. McGonigal. See, next we have Candy Ezzell. Would you unmute yourself, Ms. Ezzell? I think I can hear you.
Good morning.
Good
My
morning.
name is
Yes.
my name is Candy Spence Ezzell, Candy Ezzell.
Thank you. Do you swear or affirm to tell the truth?
Yes, I do.
Thank you. Please go ahead.
Again, my name is Candy Spence Ezzell. I am a rancher, I am a farmer, and I'm a New Mexico State Senator representing District 32 in Chaves and Eddy counties. This is an attempt to end run the legislative process. In the 2024 session, House Bill 133 tried to do much of what these proposed rule changes would do. House Bill 133 and the two committee substitutes were rejected by the legislature. You cannot amend legislation by regulation. This commission is charged with preventing waste, and the adoption of these amendments will cause waste. The applicants are not trying to protect the taxpayers of New Mexico as they claim. Instead, this is a scheme to achieve leave it in the ground. In 1959, the New Mexico legislature had the wisdom to create the oil and gas conservation tax in order to have the industry fund its regulators. In 1977, the New Mexico legislature had the wisdom to create the Reclamation Fund, which is funded by the conservation tax. Unfortunately, not all of the conservation tax goes to its intended use. The oil and gas industry pays over $100 million a year in conservation tax. Applicants argue that the industry should clean up its own mess. If we use the conservation tax for its intended purpose, industry would be cleaning up its own mess. Thank you for the chance to be able to speak to y'all today.
Thank you, Senator Ezzell. Next, we have Johnny Hines. Mr. Hines?
Yes, Johnny Hines, JONNYHEINS.
Do you swear or affirm to tell the truth?
I do.
Thank you very much. Go ahead.
Commissioners, thank you for the opportunity to provide comments. My name is Johnny Hines, and I'm the Vice President of Corporate Affairs at Permian Resources Operating LLC. Permian Resources is the seventh largest oil and gas operator in New Mexico based on barrels of oil equivalent produced per day, paying nearly $500 million annually in state taxes and royalties with approximately 1,250 producing wells operated by our company in the state of New Mexico, all of which are in Eddy and Lee counties. Permian Resources opposes Welk's rulemaking petition. As one of the state's top oil and gas operators and benefactors to the state's economy, for the following reasons, we are extremely concerned about the near-term and long-term impacts these unprecedented changes sought by Welk would create. First, as noted in NMOGA and IPNM's motion to dismiss, the proper avenue for such reforms is through legislation, not a regulatory rulemaking proceeding. Simply put, substantive changes to the Oil and Gas Act should not be made without legislative input. Various bills have been proposed at the legislature over the past several years seeking to increase bonding requirements and restrict well transfers, and each has failed. This rulemaking is a transparent attempt by Welk to circumvent the legislative process where they and other environmental organizations have previously failed to find traction for their initiatives. Second, Permian Resources and other New Mexico operators already pay substantial taxes each year that go into the Oil and Gas Reclamation Fund, which was established by the legislature for the explicit purpose of plugging and reclaiming orphan wells. The OCD currently has over $60,000 in the Reclamation Fund and should deploy these funds for their intended purpose. Third, the considerable and unnecessary increases to statewide bonding requirements proposed by Welk will have the unintended consequence of creating more orphan wells in the state. $150,000 bonds on individual wells will drive smaller independent operators out of business, thereby increasing the number of orphan wells throughout the state eliminating quality jobs and reducing taxes and royalties that would otherwise be paid to the state. Last, and perhaps most importantly to our company, the proposed rulemaking changes would grant OCD the extraordinary authority to deny well transfers in the event an applicant is out of compliance with federal and state oil and gas laws and regulations. While we are confident that the current OCD staff will not abuse this new authority, the language as currently proposed in Welk's petition could be broadly interpreted by future OCD staff to deny almost any proposed well transfer. Regulatory certainty is critical for all businesses, and creating a new subjective framework for denying well transfers is untenable, especially when applied to the industry that is most critical for the New Mexico state economy. For these reasons, we urge you to deny Welk's petition. Welk and other environmental organizations are free to pursue their sweeping reforms through legislative processes. Allowing them to implement drastic policy changes through the back door of a rulemaking proceeding is a dangerous precedent and would be catastrophic for the state's economy. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hines. Next, we have Melissa Troutman.
Yes, good morning.
Hello. Would you spell your first and last name, please?
Sure, it's Melissa Troutman.
Do you swear or affirm to tell the truth?
I do.
Please go ahead.
Good morning, Chair and Commissioners. My name is Melissa Troutman, and I represent the Permian Basin Coalition, which is a group of over 20 organizations dedicated to reducing the pollution and other harms from intensified oil and gas operations in the Permian. Our organizations include staff and members and volunteers who live and work and recreate in the Permian. And I'm here today to strongly support the proposed bonding and cleanup rule changes on behalf of the coalition. Those of us who have lived in oil country know what the industry means to communities. But we also see the mess that some companies are leaving behind. Abandoned wells, leaking equipment, and pollution that's creeping closer and closer to people and their homes and water supplies. Right now, oil and gas companies are making billions off the land. But when the wells deteriorate or stop producing, too many are walking away. And they can, because even where there are protective laws in place, like the spill rule, penalties and fines are so rarely issued that it costs them nothing to just pollute and walk away. They leave behind aging, leaking infrastructure, and it's New Mexicans living in the front lines, mostly, who are left paying for it and assuming the risk. Members of our coalition have been monitoring well sites in Loco Hills and other parts of the Permian for years, and often the same older, non or low producing wells are leaking. Equipment is so corroded that the tanks and the joints have collapsed, and we've witnessed many recurring spills, some of which are never cleaned up. For example, a company named Poco Resources has several aging and dilapidated well sites in Loco Hills that were observed leaking in 2023, 2024, and again, just a few weeks ago on October 9th. Oil and waste fluids pooled inside the unlined containment of 2 tank batteries, also around a spurting leak in a flow line, and around the wellhead of a partially dismantled pump jack that clearly has not operated in years. I've included photos, photo evidence, and GPS coordinates of these spills in my written version of these comments, so that'll be added to the record for anyone who wants to take a look. Over 700 wells have already been flagged for public cleanup in New Mexico, but more than 4,000 are at risk of being abandoned and orphaned soon. And we're concerned that these spill sites of Poco Resources are among them. Oil and gas lobbyists want us to believe that the reclamation fund can replace corporate responsibility, but the fund holds just $66 million, while state data shows that New Mexico's cleanup liability ranges between $700 million and $1.6 billion. That means the public could be on the hook for over $1 billion in cleanup costs. And while oil and gas companies walk away with the profits off of natural resources that are owned by everybody. Moreover, the number of abandoned wells will increase as oil and gas production slows, and we need to be prepared for that inevitability. Families in Loving and across southeastern New Mexico are surrounded by pipelines in their backyards, frac sites down the road, and they've been left to live in a toxic cloud, whether they know it or not, while corporations walk away with the profits. And we can't let this continue. These rule updates are common sense fixes to the problem of an unfair system. They require bonding of $150,000 per high risk or inactive well. That's still less than the total cleanup cost. They stop bad actors from inheriting wells they can't afford to clean up. And they close the loophole that lets companies call wells temporarily abandoned for 8 years or more with no action and no cleanup.
Ms. Troutman, please wrap up.
Sure. If you drill it, you clean it. That's the promise we need these rules to enforce. So we encourage you to vote to adopt these long overdue bonding reforms. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next, we have Liliana Castillo. I think
Yes,
I
can you
heard
hear me?
Yes, I can now. Thank you. Would you please spell your first and last name?
Liliana, Liliana, Castillo, Castillo.
Do you swear or affirm to tell the truth?
I do.
Thank you. I'll start your time.
Thank you. Good morning, commissioners. Thank you so much for your service and the opportunity to give public comment today. I'm one of the many New Mexicans who believe oil and gas operators, regardless of size, should be held responsible for cleaning up after themselves. Some small operators claim that if bonding is increased, they'll walk away from their wells. That argument is quite concerning. Like, does that mean that they never intended to clean up after themselves to begin with, despite that responsibility being part of what they agreed to when they bought a well or drilled a new well? This argument to me is exactly why these reforms are urgently needed. Bonding is about prevention. It's how we make sure wells don't get abandoned in the first place, because once they do, the cleanup costs skyrocket and the risk to our health and water grows. In addition, we can keep hearing that the reclamation fund should be handling this issue. But here's the truth. The reclamation fund is only part of the solution. We need both a robust reclamation fund and right-size bonding. Right-size bonding ensures the state has sufficient funds funded by oil and gas corporations when corporations walk away from their plugging responsibilities. The reclamation fund is a backup if the state doesn't have enough funding for plugging and cleanup. We need both. A broken plugging system makes it even more important to get bonding right now. A broken system only amplifies the risk when bonds are insufficient. We cannot afford to underfund risk, especially when the cost of inaction falls on our communities. If we wanted to scale up the reclamation fund, it would require, in my mind, a completely new significant fee on industry, rather than just shuffling around tax revenues. That would result in pulling dollars away from other public needs like schools and healthcare, just to clean up oil and gas wells that corporations should be responsible for. Bottom line is, if you drill it, you clean it 100% of the time at your own expense. That's what we expect as New Mexicans. Regulators should not need to chase companies down to fulfill this responsibility. Please adopt these reforms and make sure the people who profit from drilling also pay for cleanup. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Castillo. Next, we have Roland Glenn.
Good morning.
Good morning. Would you spell your first and last name, please?
Yes, my first name is Roland, Roland. Last name Glenn, Glenn.
Do you swear or affirm to tell the truth?
Yes, I do.
I'll start your time. Thank you.
Good morning, commissioners. Thank you for your time this morning. Like I said earlier, my name is Roland Glenn. I hold a master's degree as a geological engineer. I retired out of Colorado and moved down here to New Mexico for a little peace of mind. I retired back in 2017. I'd like to slow down here away from the oil field here in New Mexico. I enjoy the beautiful scenery. The oil field does support many different kinds of jobs, especially here in my community, such as the plastic injection molding company, semi-truck drivers, the power industry here in New Mexico. It brings a constant charge to the electrical grid. It also helps, like I said, the plastic molding injection company, which supports roughly 150 jobs here in Rio communities. And if these regulations continue to go through, the loss of experienced workers and the tragedy for the state of New Mexico for many different reasons, such as the loss of income for schools and other state jobs, would be detrimental to the state of New Mexico. So I'm asking you to consider the effect on the state of New Mexico that we all call home. I truly thank you for your time and your consideration.
Thank you, Mr. Glenn. Let's see, now we have Kendra. I don't know the last name.
Yes, thank you. It's Kendra Pinto,
Oh, hello. Would you spell your first and last name, please?
KendraPinto.
Do you swear or affirm to tell the truth? Hello? I think you've remuted yourself, Ms. Pinto. Sheila, can you send her a prompt that she can unmute herself again?
Yes. There we go. It turned off on me when I was talking. Okay,
Oh, dear. Okay. Do you swear or affirm to tell the truth?
I do.
I'll start your time.
Thank you. My name is Kendra Pinto, and I'm the Four Corners Indigenous Community Field Advocate and a certified optical gas imaging thermographer with Earthworks. I grew up on the Navajo Nation, surrounded by oil and gas development. This work is personal to me. I've seen the impacts of these operations my whole life on the land, the air, and the people who live near them. Last month, I joined my colleague Mandy Sackett on a field trip to the San Juan Basin. We visited dozens of oil and gas sites to document pollution and see firsthand what's happening in these aging and declining oil infrastructure. What we found was deeply troubling. What I always find, having done thermography work for 4 years, is deeply troubling. So many of these wells are old, drilled in the early 90s, and poorly maintained. Communities have to live with that, the smells, the noise, and the health risk, while companies often walk away as production in the San Juan Basin continues to decline. Last week, my colleague Mandy mentioned the low-producing Hillcore site that is less than 900 feet from the Disney Community School. I have visited that site several times, and we have filed a total of 3 complaints, yet it still has continuous emissions from 3 different sources on site. There's another Hillcore site near Herfino that is 0.6 miles from the Hanagli Community School that has 3 points of continuous emissions. We filed a complaint last month. These sites aren't isolated incidents. They're part of a pattern. Low producing, neglected wells that keep polluting long after the profits have dried up. We reported multiple emissions to the New Mexico Environmental Department, and what I see in the field clearly makes it clear the system is not working. You've heard a lot about the potential impacts on small operators, but really when wells like these are left to decline without proper oversight or bonding, it's my community, my neighbors, and my family that pays the price. Oil wells leak toxic chemicals like benzene and hydrogen sulfide into our air and water and pose a threat to everyone living in close proximity. And most of us who live on tribal lands do live in close proximity. This rule is not about punishing small operators. It's about fairness and accountability and protecting human lives and communities. Every company that drills in New Mexico should be prepared to take full responsibility for its wells. Our communities deserve to breathe clean air, and taxpayers shouldn't be left holding the bill when industry fails to act. Please adopt this rule to protect our land, our people, and our climate. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Pinto. Next, we have Blythe Monders.
Hello.
Hello. Would you spell your first and last name, please?
Sure, it's BlytheMaunders.
Do you swear or affirm to tell the truth?
I do.
Thank you. Go ahead.
Ready? Hello, my name is Blythe Monders. I'm a concerned citizen. I'm here in support of our public lands and a more responsible use of New Mexicans' tax dollars. The oil industry, which makes millions of dollars in profit each year, should be held accountable for cleaning up the wells they leave once they're done profiting from the land. I'm speaking in support of the New Mexico Oil Conservation Commission's new bonding and cleanup rules to hold the oil industry accountable for cleaning up their mess. It's a shame that New Mexicans even have to make these comments, trying to get the wealthy oil industry to do the bare minimum by cleaning up their wells. If New Mexicans are paying to clean up the mess from the oil industry, are we really profiting from having them here in the first place? These new rules will ensure that corporations, not communities, pay to plug their wells. Thank you.
Left that on. Next, we have Kelly Francisco.
Good morning.
Hello. Would you spell your first and last name, please?
Yes, Kelly, Kelly, Francisco, Francisco.
And do you swear or affirm to tell the truth?
I do.
Thank you. Go ahead.
Good morning, Chair Commissioners. My name is Kelly Francisco, and I'm speaking as a resident of New Mexico and a concerned citizen of the Navajo Nation in strong support of the proposed bonding rule changes. I believe that no matter the size of an oil or gas operator, they should clean up after themselves. That's the law, their responsibility, and it is just common sense. Right now, there are nearly 700 wells that oil and gas corporations have abandoned, and another 4,400 that could be abandoned in the future, which threatens our health and drinking water unless we make them clean up. New Mexicans are paying the price when corporations walk away from their responsibilities. Nearly 100 million in public funds have been used to clean up abandoned wells in just the last 5 years. That's money that could have gone to our schools, our roads, and our clean energy future. The truth is, most wells in New Mexico are owned by wealthy corporations that can afford to do the right thing. If a corporation can afford to clean up, then maybe they shouldn't be drilling in the first place. Fair rules make a fair playing field. Responsible operators already plug their wells. This rule will make sure the rest do too. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Francisco. Next, we have Brian Sweeney.
Morning.
Good morning. Would you spell your first and last name, please?
BrianSweeny.
Thank you. Do you swear or affirm to tell the truth?
Yes.
Thank you. Go ahead.
Good morning, Chair and Commissioners. I want to speak in favor of the proposed bonding rule changes because I'm a big fan of fairness. The law requires oil and gas companies to plug wells when they're done with them, and there's a growing problem of companies not following that law. Bankruptcy has become an irresponsible part of the business plan. But if you make a mess, you should clean it up 100% of the time. This is not grade school, and 95% is not an A. 95% in this case results in 702 abandoned wells in New Mexico, with over 4,000 about to be abandoned at a cost of $700 million to $1.6 billion of public money. That is not right. Non-plugged wells present risks to public health, clean water, and the environment, so they should be plugged. The law says that the companies who have profited from these wells should pay to close them up and clean up the area. When people rent apartments, they have to put down a security deposit proportional to the costs to repair any damage. For decades, oil and gas companies have put down bonds that don't come close to covering plugging and cleanup costs. causing the very expensive and growing abandoned well problem. This is the wealthiest industry in the history of the world. They can afford to follow the law. People in this hearing have complained that the reclamation fund is adequate for that purpose, but its $66 million doesn't come close to covering the $700 million to $1.6 billion price tag for plugging. That fund was created, quote, for use by the Oil Conservation Division in carrying out the provisions of the Oil and Gas Act. That is to say, not just plugging wells. So that fund is too small to address the problem. The reason that fund is growing is because New Mexico received federal money for plugging that if we didn't use it, we would lose it. Don't be distracted by the oil and gas industry's many deflections. They want to talk about anything but how inherently fair it is to require adequate bonding and how unfair it is for the state to use hundreds of millions of dollars of public money to pay to clean up industry's messes that companies have profited from. Cleaning up after yourself is a cost of doing business, not a public liability. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Sweeney. Do we have anyone else on the platform would like to offer? Let's see, Robert Briani. Sheila, do you see the RB there?
Yes, I'm admitting him right now.
If you've called the platform using your phone, you can raise your hand by dialing *5, by the way. Mr. Briani, can you unmute yourself? Mr. Briani? Well, may have stepped away. Mr. Briani, if you can hear me, you have permission to unmute, but, oh, no. But you're not unmuted. Perhaps you could submit your comments in writing, or perhaps you could join us Thursday morning when we are certain we will have another public comment session. Okay, Sheila, do you want to unmute the 575-993 number? I don't know who this is.
I've given them the permissions to unmute themselves.
Okay, let's see, I think unmute on the phone. Oh, I think you're unmuted. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yes, now I can. Would you tell us your
Okay.
name and spell it for the transcript, please?
Yes, David Patterson, DavidPatterson.
Thank you. Do you swear or affirm to tell the truth?
I do.
All right, I'll start your time.
Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity to speak to this commission. It's been fascinating listening to all the comments. Mine is that I would like to say my grandfather was the most influential person in my life. He had a 5th grade education. He lived through a Great Depression and 2 world wars and had some strong views that were developed out of those life experiences. One was that you don't waste anything, and the other one was that if you make a mess, you clean it up. I had to apologize for some of the messes I created as a rebellious teen, and I had to clean them up. Sadly, we do not live in such a simple, naive world. Everyone on this commission knows that fossil fuels over the past 250 years have brought some of the greatest advancements civilization has ever known. I love the quality of life that fossil fuels have provided. Everyone on this commission also knows that we collectively have made a mess and we know we must clean up the mess. We also know that the fossil fuel companies have known since at least 1986 from reports by their own scientists that continuing to burn these fuels would heat the atmosphere. Their response has been to spread disinformation instead of just being honest. Sadly, that's why this commission exists, to make sure these companies clean up their mess. We know that methane and other toxic gases are leaking from oil and gas wells all over New Mexico, around the country, and around the world. We can't make everyone clean up their mess, but we can do it in New Mexico. The job description for the director of the Oil Conservation Division says in part, it enforces the state's oil and gas statutes, ensures abandoned wells are properly plugged, and that the land is properly restored once production activities are completed. I think my grandfather, with his 5th grade education, refined everything into one sentence. If you make a mess, clean it up. Thanks again for the chance to speak today. Let's clean it up.
Thank you very much, Mr. Patterson. I see Mr. Briani has raised his hand again. Let's see if he's able to unmute himself this time. Mr. Briani, it might help to press Control-Shift-M to unmute. Okay. I believe there are some folks in the room. Again, Mr. Briani, I'm sorry that you're not able to unmute yourself at your end. But we do have some folks in the room, and I'm going to turn to them. Yes, ma'am, in the white cap. Right over here. You would share your first and last name.
Laura Brookins, LuraBrookins.
Thank you. Do you swear or affirm to tell the truth?
I'm sorry,
Swear or affirm to tell the truth?
I still don't understand.
Do you swear or affirm to tell the truth?
Oh, yes.
Thank you. Go ahead. I'll start your time.
Thank you. Being a resident for Santa Fe for 30 years as a landscape designer and artist, I've become an ardent protector of our beautiful landscape. I've also come to see that we citizens of our land must speak now to defy corporate misuse of our land, oil resources, and our precious water. Without adequate remediation of the land, we are witnessing cynical disregard of our land and waters. The oil and gas industries have also avoided their obligation to clean up the damages they inflicted on our land. Increasing number of wells have expired or temporarily abandoned, and others are out of compliance. That can mean a possible $1.6 billion cost for this state to plug and remediate orphan wells in the future. These costs must be borne or shared by the operators of these wells to pay for the cleanup. It has been their profit to capture our oil resources using our scarce water. We need guaranteed assurances from these oil and gas companies that they will honor and guarantee environmental safeguards to protect our waters and land, and to set up funds for all cleanup costs. There need to be guardrails to hold these companies accountable for damages and remedial costs. It is our land, our air, and our sacred water that must be protected. I would like to close with a quote from N. Scott Momaday, a member of the Kiowa tribe, a poet and novelist and resident of Santa Fe who passed last year, from his book, Earthkeeper. We humans must revere the earth, for it is our well-being. Always the earth grants us what we need. If we treat the earth with kindness, it will treat us kindly. If we give our belief to the earth, it will believe in us. There is no better blessing than to be believed in. There are those who believe that the earth is dead. They are deceived. The earth is alive. It is possessed of spirit. Consider the holy tree. It can be allowed to thirst. It can be cut down. Worst of all, it can be not be denied our faith in it, our belief. But if we speak to it, we pray, it will thrive. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Perkins. Is there anyone else in the room who would like to offer public comment during this session? We're certain we will have another session this Thursday morning at 9. Your first and last name, please.
Alicia Sosi Harvey,
And would you spell that?
ALICIATSOSIE-HARVEY.
Thank you. Do you swear or affirm to tell the truth?
Yes.
I'll start your time.
Good morning, Chair Commissioners. My name is Alicia Sosi Harvey, and I'm speaking on behalf of as a concerned citizen of New Mexico and the Navajo Nation, and a representative of Deny Care, in strong support to the proposed bonding rule changes. I believe that no matter the size of an oil or gas operator, they should clean up after themselves. That's the law and their responsibility. I have firsthand witnessed the lasting impacts of oil and gas corporations on and near the Navajo Nation. Right now, there are nearly 700 wells that oil and gas corporations have abandoned, and other could have been abandoned in the future, which threatens our health, drinking water, unless we make them clean up. Please vote to adopt stronger bonding rules. Let's protect our air, water, and land, and make sure no one gets to profit while leaving the rest of us with the mess. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Hardy. Anyone else in the room? Yes, come on up. Your first and last name, please.
My name is Cheyenne Antonio, Cheyenenne, Antonio, Antonio.
And do you swear or affirm to tell the truth?
I swear.
Thank you.
So, good morning, good afternoon, Chair, Commissioners. My name is Cheyenne Antonio, and I am speaking on the behalf of the Checkerboard Navajo Nation community, and also with Dine Care in support of the proposed bonding rule changes. I've heard the argument that we shouldn't be changing bonding requirements because our well plugging system is broken, but I think that is exactly backwards. Within the community that I'm from, there are idle wells, sleeping wells. It's crazy that wells can be asleep, idle and abandoned. And we do see leaks in our desert area where I live in the Checkerboard region. The reclamation fund is there for emergencies, not for the corporations to rely on as a backup plan when they walk away. If we don't fix the bonding system now, the problem only gets bigger and more expensive. And you can ask impacted communities for those systems and see if it works, because it doesn't. The rule is about preventing the future risk of more abandoned wells. If we require fair bonding now, we don't need to drain public funds later. That's not just smart government, it's basic risk management. A broken system doesn't mean we wait to act. It means we act now to keep things from getting worse. Please adopt the proposed rules and protect my future, the Checkerboard area of New Mexico and Navajo Nation, for our future. So thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Antonio. Is there anyone else in the room who would like to offer public comment during this session? No? All right. I saw one more person on the platform, Sheila. I think GH, perhaps, Jean. Jean Harbaugh. Mr. Harbach, can you unmute yourself? Control Shift M might work. No? All right, and Mr. Biryani has, I'm sorry if I'm mispronouncing your name, Briani, has his hand up, so we'll try one more time.
Good morning, Commissioners.
Oh, good morning. Would you state and spell your first and last name, please?
Okay, my name is Robert Bryant, spelled R-O-B-E-R-T, B-R-Y-A-N-T.
Thank you. Do you swear or affirm to tell the truth?
I do.
Thank you. I'll start your time.
My name is Robert Bryant. I reside in Corrales, New Mexico with my wife, Karen, who is a retired RN. And I'm sorry I have problems with the allergies this morning. And she is a second generation New Mexican. And we have 4 children, 6 grandchildren, and 6 great-grandchildren. I'm from Virginia originally, and I served in the U.S. Navy over 30 years. And then I became a New Mexico State Trooper. I retired from there. I was stationed at Kirtland Air Force Base, went in the Navy. When I retired, I had a rental business at one time in Corrales, which I sold because of hindrances with tenants. And my reason for keeping the oil and gas industry going in the U.S. is, number one, is national security. At this point, we are buying oil from countries that are not friendly to us, and they could shut off supply at any time. The cost of fuel has raised prices from everything from groceries to clothing and everyday items. And it's because of shipping with the oil prices for semis. People are losing jobs as businesses are shutting down due to the high cost of fuel, and people can't afford to put fuel in their vehicles to go to work anymore. It's either food or gas. And cutting back on or curtailing drilling in New Mexico also cuts out many needed jobs in New Mexico, and also revenue from oil and gas for education in New Mexico. When the wells are shut down, it takes time and money to re-drill. And the communities in the drilling areas are struggling economically, and it's stressing our agricultural industry due to the cost of fuel. Thank you, Commissioners, for listening to me this morning.
Thank you, Mr. Bryan. Anyone else at all on the platform? Don't see any other hands. We will go back to our technical case then. Mr. Ezzell, would you join us up at the front?
Madam Hearing Officer, while Mr. Ezzell's taking the stand, IPA&M has exhibits 37, 38, and 39, which were sponsored by Mr. Cantrell, who we withdrew as a witness. We just asked that those 3 exhibits be treated as part of his written public comment, which was his former testimony. Second, we have IPA&M Exhibit 45, which I used in cross-examining Mr. Powell. We will not be using it in our case, the declaration of Ms. Johnson, which is 45, simply authenticates certain documents we received in NIPA request for the department, and we move the admission of Exhibit 45.
All right, I'll pause for a moment in the event there are objections to the Cantrell exhibits 37, 38, 39, with them becoming public comment. Oh, all right, they're admitted. And now Exhibit 45, this documented receipt of documents through IPRA. Any objections? All right, Exhibit 45 is admitted. Thank you. Mr. Cloutier.
Madam Hearing Officer, as another housekeeping or threshold matter, I did just circulate this morning to all of the parties proposed OCD rebuttal exhibit 34. I'm sure people have not had a chance to review that yet. It directly rebuts the testimony which arose on cross-examination by Mr. Armstrong yesterday. I think it's imperative for the commission to see this. I'm happy to take it up at a later time. I just wanted on the record that we need to discuss that. I will be moving for its admission. I do think it is appropriate as rebuttal or surrebuttal, as the point made by Mr. Armstrong only came up yesterday afternoon. I do have alternative bases that I believe would achieve its admission, but I'd prefer not to get into those if not necessary.
All right, let's take that up when we have finished with Mr. Ezzell. All right, so when we broke last night, Mr. Ezzell had completed his testimony, and we move now to cross-examination, which is limited to 45 minutes. And we'll start with Ms. Fox or Mr. Tisdale.
Thank you, Madam Hearing Officer. I have a few questions for Mr. Ezzell.
Good morning.
Good morning. Mr. Ezzell, my name is Tanis Fox. I'm a lawyer with Western Environmental Law Center, and I represent applicants in this proceeding. In your testimony yesterday, Mr. Cloutier referred you to a part of the definition of underground waste in section 70-2-3A of the Oil and Gas Act, which includes the language I'm showing on the screen that when operating or producing of any well or wells in a manner to reduce or which requires when operating or producing of any well or wells in a manner to reduce or tend to reduce the total quantity of crude petroleum, oil, or natural gas ultimately recovered from any pool. You relied on this language, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
And Mr. Cloutier asked you something to the effect of how much waste is allowed under the statute, and you said zero waste, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
In order to comply with the standard of zero waste, does that mean that an operator must produce a well to its very last hydrocarbon without regard to the economics of that well?
No, ma'am.
And why is that?
Because no well ever produces the last molecule of hydrocarbon. You cannot recover 100% of the oil or gas in a reservoir.
Then under your...
Hopefully we will have the technology to later with the help of New Mexico Tech.
Then under your formulation that waste means zero waste, does that mean that the operator must produce a well to the very last hydrocarbon that that operator can produce without regard to well economics? That it's physically possible, technologically possible to produce?
No, there is an economic limit, and we all know that.
And what's that economic limit?
When a well is no longer capable of producing in paying quantities. And of course, that varies from operator to operator.
In your testimony yesterday, you raised concerns about applicants' proposed provisions in 1915-9-8 and 1915-9-9 regarding operator registration and operator and change of operator, correct? And that citation at the beginning for operator registration,
yes,
has an incorrect one at the very end. I don't know how that popped up. There it is. Anyway, you gave testimony on these provisions yesterday, correct?
I don't believe I did give testimony on it. It's in my direct, in my written testimony.
You gave testimony on it in when you were discussing slide 38 in your
I don't know what
you want me to pull
slide
that up
38
for
was.
you? Let's see here.
Oh, yes.
Found it?
I did give testimony because if I remember correctly, I was concerned with unresolved adjudications.
And applicants and OCD propose in these provisions that the operator be required to provide certain information to OCD prior to registration or well transfer, correct?
Yes.
And part of that information is a certification by the authorized official of the operator that the operator, as you noted, does not have unresolved adjudicated orders or unresolved settlement agreements for any state or federal violations in any domestic jurisdiction, correct?
That's what it says. Yes, ma'am.
Yesterday, and maybe this is just mistaken testimony, but yesterday you testified that the OCD doesn't have authority to require another state to provide that authority to OCD. Correct? That was your testimony?
Yes, it was.
But doesn't this provision provide that it's the authorized official from the operator that provides the information to OCD, not another state?
So the authorized official is intended to be a representative of the entity that wants to be the operator.
Correct. And the operator registration provision, it says the certification by an authorized official that the new operator is not blah, blah, blah.
Right.
Yes, refers to the authorized official of the operator, correct?
Correct.
Yesterday you testified that applicants and OCD's proposals at 191589A and MAC, which I have up on the screen for you, regarding financial assurance attempts to require operators to, quote, bond just to negotiate acquisition, correct? That was from your slide 40.
Now repeat your question, please.
You testified regarding this provision that it was requiring operators to, quote, bond just to negotiate acquisition, correct?
Yes.
So do you appreciate that this provision was the subject of a motion to dismiss filed by IPAM and NMOGA, and to dismiss this particular provision on the ground that it regulates the sale of wells between operators?
Yes.
And are you aware that IPAM and NMOGA made this argument in their motion to dismiss, even though Peter Morgan, our expert, explained in both his direct and rebuttal testimony that the intent of the red line language was simply to clarify current OCD practice and simply require financial assurance prior to acquisition of operating authority. Are you aware of that testimony by Mr. Morgan?
I'm embarrassed to say no, and I have not read the motion to dismiss either.
Well, the motion to dismiss was the subject of your testimony was also the subject of the motion to dismiss. And perhaps not having read the pleadings, that motion to dismiss, are you aware that in IPAM and NMOGA's reply in support of their motion to dismiss, that they suggested, quote, an easy fix to the problem, and that was to, and this is language from the motion to dismiss here up in front of you, and that was to modify anytime the word acquire, acquisition came up in the rule, to modify that using the terms operating authority. I'll let you read all that.
I see that, but I don't know that I agree that that's an easy fix. I think even with that amended language, that it would still have a chilling effect on the ability for an operator to sell its assets. And I think I testified that it is quite common to hire a broker that will create a data room for you and basically hold an auction online, but an auction. And I think requiring financial assurance prior to proceeding with any proposed acquisition is chilling on the freedom to exchange properties.
But you understand that the intent of this is to clarify current practice and just require financial assurance to be in place before an operation begins, correct?
Then take the word acquisition out.
Well, the hearing officer, interesting you say that about wordsmithing this, because this language was offered by your counsel and the hearing officer. Are you aware that the hearing officer in her recommendation asked applicants and OCD to address this language in their presentations?
I have not been involved with anything other than my direct testimony.
Okay. Well, I have the hearing
Pretty limited in
officer's.
scope.
Thank you. I have the hearing officer's language up here, and she suggested that applicants and OCD be asked to address the suggested insertions by the moving parties. And are you aware that we did exactly that through Mr. Morgan's testimony and exhibit? And she asked us to do that to attempt to avoid the wordsmithing that I think was just going on right now.
That's what we do.
And that she asked us to address that, and that we submitted the proposed language, the language proposed by IPAM as Exhibit 88 through Mr. Morgan's testimony. Are you aware of all that?
No. As I say, I have not been involved in any of the procedural aspects of this, especially not, I'm a transactional lawyer. I can't spell motion to dismiss.
Well, I guess this wasn't as easy a fix as we were led to believe. In your rebuttal testimony, you disagreed with Mr. Alexander's testimony that virtually all inactive wells were reactivated within 8 years, correct?
Yes.
And you testified yesterday something to the effect of, I don't know what he based that representation on, correct?
That is correct.
So are you familiar with applicant's exhibit 13, which shows that 99, and this was an exhibit developed by the Environmental Defense Fund, which shows that 99.5% of reactivations of inactive wells occur within 8 years of activity.
That's what it says, yes.
Are you familiar with this exhibit at all?
No, ma'am.
Okay, so you don't have any data to the contrary, correct?
Only in my personal experience with helping clients form secondary recovery units.
So you anecdotal experience, but you don't have any data looking at the whole of reactivations and inactive wells over
No,
time.
ma'am, I do not.
Correct. Thank you. And you don't have a basis to dispute the data before you in applicant's exhibit 13, correct?
Not without studying it independently.
Okay, I'm gonna bring up your slide 5 from your SIR rebuttal. Now, yesterday you testified. Oh, it's not you, sorry. Let's see. Let's see here. Yeah, I do. Hold on. Hold on 1 second. There we go. So now slide 5 from your SIR rebuttal is up, Mr. Ezzell. And yesterday you testified that federal wells are no longer exempt from the commission requirements for financial assurance because applicants and OCD had proposed to delete a reference in this section here to 1915-89A, correct?
Can you put them up on the same screen?
I can't do 2 screens,
Oh.
but this is your slide that you testified from yesterday, where you stated that because of the deletion of 1915-89A in this section, that deleted the exemption for federal wells from OCD rules for financial assurance.
I think Ms. Fox is overstating the testimony. I think he testified that it eliminated it for the wells that are subject to paragraph E, not all wells.
For federal wells.
For federal wells that would be subject to subparagraph E, but
So you think his testimony was that inactive and TA federal wells are exempted?
are not exempted.
Are not exempted.
Because of the
Okay,
strike.
fair
That I think was the intent of the testimony. So
Fair enough. Do you agree with your counsel's
That's the way I
presentation?
interpret
Maybe
what I.
wait till I finish my
Okay,
question.
sorry.
Yeah, it's hard for the court reporter. I don't mind so much, but the court reporter does.
Absolutely.
Right, okay. So you agree with what your counsel just said in terms of what your testimony is, correct?
Yes.
Okay. So, okay, let me stop sharing. And go back to my slides. Okay, so the provision that you referred to where the federal well exemption lives is 1915-89A, correct? That's what you said in your slide. This is the provision that exempts essentially exempts federal wells from the commission's rules on financial assurance, correct?
Yes. The language, unless the well is covered by a federally required FA.
And you see that that language has not been proposed to be deleted by applicants or OCD, correct? The language that exempts federal wells from the state's financial assurance requirements.
That is correct, but the proposed amendment deletes the reference to that. And I think that is problematic.
Do you think that reference was deleted just in order to clarify that all wells in inactive and TA status, not just those that have been TA status under 2 years, are subject to that particular financial assurance requirement in subpart E? Isn't that what that language, why that language was deleted? Because the language exempting federal wells is left unchanged.
That may be how it was intended. I don't think it was done very artfully.
We can agree to disagree on that. Yesterday, you testified in rebuttal that Mr. Morgan was incorrect, that OCD can release a bond if a well is no longer deemed a marginal well, correct?
Yes.
And you cited to the Oil and Gas Act at 70-2-14A for that proposition, correct?
Probably.
Let me read it to you because you'll probably recognize it. That provision provides all financial assurance shall remain in force until released by the Oil Conservation Division, blah, blah, blah.
Right.
Okay.
But that goes to the issue of whether a bond is cancelable. And I think Mr. Morgan said it was, that they are, and I disagree. Look at the OCD bond form.
Mr. Morgan testified that the bonds are not cancelable and that makes good policy sense.
Releasable,
isn't that correct?
Releasable and cancelable are the same to me.
Let me just continue here. But
okay.
You don't recall his testimony
in support. I don't get to ask the question.
But you don't recall his testimony in support of the idea that surety bonds should be non-cancelable. You don't recall that testimony?
No.
Okay. But your testimony yesterday was that he was wrong, that OCD can release a bond if a well is no in marginal status. That was your testimony yesterday, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
And I stand by that.
But looking at the commission's rules at 1915-812, which I have up here, doesn't it clearly state in those rules that financial assurance can be removed if it's covered by another financial assurance that the division has approved, so that an operator can replace financial assurance if needed?
But doesn't the statute say that the financial assurance cannot be released until the well has been plugged, since that was the condition upon which the financial assurance was entered into and issued?
But that wouldn't preclude the commission from passing rules that says that a financial assurance needs to be replaced for whatever reason. The financial assurance requirements could go up, they could go down. An operator might want to use a different company for that financial assurance. That provision in the statute doesn't preclude OCD from approving replacement financial assurance, correct? Which is what this provision allows.
I would agree with that.
And so then isn't it also true that applicants specifically for marginal wells, don't applicants in OCD propose that an operator, and this is the second language down here in that slide, that an operator with a marginal well or wells must annually review the number of marginal wells that operator has and shall update the one well plugging financial assurance of May 1st of each year. Isn't that what applicants in OCD propose?
Yes, but again, I don't like the language because it implies to me that the only thing they can do is add marginal wells to their list and come up with more bonding rather than saying that there's nothing in that language that what if an operator plugs one of the marginal wells? Then he should be able to take it off the list, right?
This language says that it doesn't say that the number of wells it only applies when wells are increased. It says that the operator shall update the one well plugging financial assurance after an annual review of the number of wells. So it's neutral as to whether the number of wells increases or decreases, correct?
Yeah, it has no express language that it covers both, and that's what I'd like to see.
And you're aware, because this is highlighted language, this is language that was negotiated with OCC, correct?
No, I have no idea what was negotiated with OCC.
That's all the questions I had, Mr. Ezzell. Thank you very much for your testimony.
Thank you, ma'am. Nice to meet you.
You too.
Thank you, Ms. Fox. Mr. Tremaine?
It's going to be Mr. Hall this time,
Mr. Hall.
Madam Hearing
Thank
Officer.
you.
Thank you. Good morning, Mr. Ezzell.
Good morning.
My name's Michael Hall. I don't think we've had occasion to meet. I'm a lawyer with the Oil Conservation Division.
Okay.
How are you this morning?
I am well. How are you?
Good. I wanted to respond first of all to your gratitude. It's Mr. Tremaine that you should thank for pointing out that you had cited a statute that doesn't exist. So
No, it exists. I just misquoted it.
Well, I guess
So
we'll have
Jeffrey.
a chance to explore that a little bit. Let me go ahead and ask you about that. Are you saying that the statute you cited is law in New Mexico?
Yes.
Okay. Well, let's go ahead and just start there. I'm looking at, and I'll pull it up. This is page 3, the bottom of page 3 of your rebuttal.
Yes.
And continue, would you agree it continues on to page 4?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And I'm going to highlight some language here. You would agree that that part is operative law in New Mexico?
Yes.
So you think the statute states shall be set by rule at amounts not to exceed $50,000?
No, I corrected that in my mea culpa errata statement yesterday. It is the blanket bond for those wells cannot be less than $50,000.
I understand. I took what you had said as quibbling over whether that's a real statute or not. You would agree that parts of it are real and parts of it aren't, correct?
The printed version or
The printed
amended?
version, yes, sir.
Well, I really don't care. I amended it to make it correct.
Okay. You would agree you're under oath here today, and so you're under obligation to continue with your amendments and not claim that this is the law, because it's actually the opposite, that provision, isn't it?
Until I corrected it, yes.
Okay. Now, in what capacity are you testifying here today?
I think I am here because I am the only witness that is a licensed attorney in New Mexico.
Okay. Are you here as a partner of Mr. Cloutier? Are you here as a witness? Are you here?
I am here as a witness.
Okay.
It's not Cloutier, it's Cloutier.
Mr. Cloutier is your partner, correct?
Yes.
And so you are profiting from representation of IPM in this matter?
I will admit to that, although I want to say you haven't seen our firm's compensation plan.
Nor do I want to. I'm simply exploring possible bias here. The gentleman, he's a gentleman, so are you. But you are profiting as an attorney and a witness in this matter. I just want that to be clear. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay. Now, yesterday you made several references to standard JOAs. A JOA and a COPUS agreement, those are contracts, correct?
Yes.
They are easily modified, changed, or left in place.
Yes.
Your familiarity is because people need a lawyer to look at those and change them, correct?
Exactly.
The form almost never works as it stands, right?
I would disagree with that.
Okay.
I mean, the AAPL took great pride in each of its forms so that it could be executed without alteration. They did, however, in each of them have an Article 15, which is blank on the form and allows people to make any additional amendments that they want.
And in your experience, these are arm's length transactions between sophisticated parties, correct?
Normally, although in the wells that I've participated in, there's not a lot of room for negotiation because the operator wants to have the language that the operator likes. And so, if it is Oxy and XTO, yeah, there's a lot of arm's length negotiation. But for a shoe clerk going into a drilling deal, you pretty much it's take it or leave it.
Correct me if I'm wrong. Your testimony, the crux of your testimony about JOAs and COPUS was it's going to cause a lot of problems, correct?
My testimony was that I don't think that under any of those forms, an operator can pass along the cost of the financial assurance.
However, that's something an operator or anyone else who's a party to those contracts could have contemplated, correct?
No, because every non-operator in the world will swear on a Bible that bonding costs should be covered by administrative overhead.
I see. So there's disagreement in the industry about the effect of these agreements.
I don't know that there's disagreement because I don't know that none of my operators have ever attempted to pass along the costs of bonding.
But my question is really simple. A provision to contemplate bonding and how those risks and costs are borne by the parties to the contract. That's always been possible, hasn't it?
Always.
Okay. Now, I'm going to jump around just a touch. Did I hear you claim that an operator has to have more than 0% property interest in a well yesterday? That's what I wrote down. And if that's not what I heard,
No,
then
an operator can have no interest.
okay.
If they're contract operators or under the JOAs, I think I gave the example of an operator resigning but being forced to continue to operate the well.
Fair enough. And an operator may or may not own a property interest, a mineral interest, et cetera, correct?
Or leasehold, yes.
And so that the idea that regulating operators necessarily regulates property interest would be incorrect, wouldn't it?
If an operator owned no interest in the real property, then I would agree with that. Okay. But if an operator owned any interest, then I stand by it.
And once again, that's an agreement between the parties as they see fit, correct?
Yes.
And so the corollary to that is it your claim that New Mexico does not have the right, OCD does not have the right to regulate operators and who can be an operator?
I think it is OCD's job to regulate operators.
Great.
But I don't think it's their job to choose who gets to be one.
Who would do that?
Well, I'm a free market guy. I think if you have the right to enter into a business and fail.
Sure. So you think extremely non-compliant, I'll think of some Kano. You think Kano should be an operator and OCD should have no say in that because of your free market beliefs?
Well, in hindsight, but we did allow Kano to be an operator and we did accept their bonds. And so they were. It turns out they were lousy.
Do you think, as you sit here today, OCD should have no right to regulate Kano, for instance, as an operator?
I think they have the right to regulate and enforce, but not to pick who is worthy. It's not like they have to, an operator has to apply for a permit to be an operator.
Well, they do, don't they?
Well, they do, but not to be able to even enter into a negotiation to buy a property. That's just not the OCD's business.
You do some work in Texas oil and gas, is that right?
No.
Are you familiar with the language Miss Fox put up about acquisition of operatorship? Does that comport with your understanding of what the Railroad Commission does in Texas?
I'm not licensed in Texas and I've never even participated in a.
What is problematic about that language?
As I've already stated, I think it is chilling on the free exchange of real property interests.
You would agree that that proposed rule does not in any way inhibit or regulate the transfer of real property. It only regulates who may be an operator, correct?
I didn't say it regulated. I said it chilled the free market ability to enter into negotiations to potentially buy properties.
You have to read some language in there about owning property for that to be accurate though, correct?
Say that again, please.
Sure, you have to read some language that's not there in the rule for that to be regulating real property.
No, I don't think you have to imply any language. I think it says you have to promise not to even negotiate the acquisition of a property unless you posted a bond.
Of operatorship, not property, correct? It doesn't say property.
But it still has the chilling effect on the free exchange of real property interests.
At any rate, the rule says what it does, right? It doesn't say property. Can we at least agree on that?
The word property is not in it.
Thank you. Now, in some of your testimony, is it your position that OCD has not considered depth in these proposed rules? Depth of wells?
Yes, there is nothing in it that in the proposed rules that refers back to the statute, which says the OCD shall consider these things. It just, the proposed rules say, here's the amount of the blanket, here's the amount of the single well. The only remaining discretion that the rules give to the OCD is on the blanket bonds, not to be less than 50,000, and on a single well bond for an active well that has to be at an amount equal to the cost of plugging.
It says consider the depth, correct?
Yes.
It doesn't say you have to make financial assurance attached to depth. It says that should be a factor considered. Can we agree on that?
That is what the statute requires.
And you, sir, about Mr. Powell's testimony, was part of that testimony that you heard that it was considered and it wasn't found to be correlated to depth wasn't correlated to plugging costs in the manner that age did, for instance?
Would you restate that?
Sure. Did you hear Mr. Powell say that depth was considered, but it did not really correlate to the cost of plugging?
I heard that. I disagree with it.
Sure. So at any rate, we agree that it was considered.
I don't know that it was considered in the manner required by the statute. You cannot say a 900-foot San Andreas well is going to need a $150,000 bond. That's just reality of the business.
Just my question was, we agree it was considered. Mr. Powell's testimony makes clear it was considered. You don't agree with how he considered it, but it was considered. Can we at least agree on that?
I will agree that he claims it was considered.
Fair enough. And I guess.
Isn't it fun?
Much like you claim it wasn't, right?
Yep.
Okay. Now, speaking of the statute, you would agree that it's OCD's costs that bonding needs to cover, not industries, correct?
That's the way it's written, and I think that's the biggest problem with it in the beginning. The OCD, they've got wonderful experts, but industry can plug any well cheaper than the OCD.
But an orphaned well hasn't been plugged, correct, by industry.
That's right.
And
I would love to see the reclamation fund be adequately funded, and then have the OCD have the ability to say,
Fair enough. Would you agree to
Company
just
A.
answer my questions? I only have 45 minutes and I know you'll have your opportunities to say what you think should happen with the reclamation fund, but
Can't blame me for trying to kill your time.
well, I kind of do blame you for that. Now, your testimony also stated that reclamation was part of the 163,000 average cost for OCD's well plugging. Do you still maintain that?
I don't know that I said that.
Okay, well, we can pull it up.
Because I don't agree with that number in the first place.
All right. Okay, can you see the top of the page there? Could you read that paragraph for me, please?
Starting with fourth.
Yes, sir.
Fourth, the proposal is based on a supposed average of OCD's cost to plug, abandon, and reclaim individual wells. Under the Oil and Gas Act, only plugging costs can be considered.
Do you still maintain you didn't say that?
No, I put it in my direct testimony.
Would you like to change that testimony?
No.
You do think that part of the 163,000 was to reclaim wells?
I don't know anything about the 163,000 other than what's been said here. I also know that if you look at the annual reports from the department to the legislature and the governor, and this was in Morgan's testimony, I guess, from 2019 to 24, the OCD expended 15.5 million to plug 93 wells.
So
an average cost.
let me
of
ask it.
$80,000.
Let me ask it a different way. What is the basis for your statement that the proposal is based on a supposed average of OCD's cost to plug, abandon, and reclaim individual wells?
Well, the word supposed was there because.
What's your basis for that statement, sir, in your testimony?
Well, the basis for it is that the Oil and Gas Act does not talk about reclamation costs in the financial assurance.
What evidence makes you think that the proposal is based upon that?
Because that's the figure that the applicants have been using, that it is 163,000 and that it's etched in stone and it doesn't matter on the depth of the well or the age of the well or anything else.
Would you agree that 163,000, the testimony is solely that is plugging costs and not reclamation costs?
Yes.
You dispute that?
No, you asked me if I agreed. Now you're killing your time.
Okay, now we're going to get to the part where your statute that had parts that don't exist, and some of your testimony relies on that as opposed to just single words. Do you maintain that that margin under the proposed definitions, marginal wells will be bonded at 300% the maximum amount authorized by statute?
No, that's the minimum amount. As quit going back to what I've already corrected.
Well, 300% is incorrect too, isn't it?
No, I don't think so.
Okay. It's 300% of the minimum amount? This just, we can take
Yeah.
that whole sentence.
3
but
times 50 is
but
150.
Do you agree that when you make the maximum TA 50,000 instead of the minimum 50,000, the entire crux of this entire paragraph changes?
It doesn't matter other than, I mean, the statute is what the statute is.
I very much agree with that.
Just the fact that we got the wrong word on the page does not change the statute. It does not make the statute not exist.
Well, the statute does exist, just not as you stated it in your rebuttal testimony, correct?
It exists as I stated in my correction to the typographical errors.
Just so the record's clear, your testimony is based upon that faulty understanding of the statute, correct?
No.
Oh, it's not.
My testimony is based on the statute.
Okay. The statute as cited in your rebuttal testimony,
The
correct?
statute as in the book.
Okay. Now, down here on page 9, line 18.
Of what? Oh, okay.
Of your rebuttal testimony. Would you agree that you don't know why the legislature did or did not take actions?
Because they couldn't agree on, the parties couldn't agree on what the proponents of it, House Bill 133, could not agree. And anytime the industry tried to comment, it was basically flatly ignored. The fact that there were two, I'm talking, the fact that there were two committee substitutes, one in energy.
Well, hold on.
and one in
You're talking,
judiciary.
but you're not answering my question. My question is, it should be yes or no. Do you agree that you don't know why the legislature did or did not act a certain way? That you're not the arbiter of that?
No, but I was there and witnessing it.
Would you agree that
they
the
didn't
LF
act because it was a bad bill?
Would you agree?
Mr. Hall keeps interrupting the witness. He's entitled to answer even if Mr. Hall wants a yes or no.
All right. So, Mr. Ezzell, if you would please bring more focus to the question that's being asked. And Mr. Hall, please don't step on the end of his sentences.
That's, at any rate, it could have been that the legislature, like the LFC, thought that the statutes weren't necessary because the rules already allowed what's happening here today, for instance, correct?
I cannot speak to that. I do not know.
Fair enough. That's what I wanted. That's what I wanted us to agree on. So. Okay, I'm going to go to your couple of comments in your rebuttal.
Oh.
If I can find it, excuse me. How do I share this, Jesse? Okay, Mr. Ezzell. One second. Now on your rebuttal is slide 10, and I'll pull it up here in a sec. But Would you agree that based on 180 days of production, this proposed rule is not requiring low producers to simply plug? It's requiring low producers to produce or take appropriate actions?
I don't understand why the 180 days comes into your question. So
Well, would you agree that the proposed definition of marginal well includes both days of production and volumes?
yes,
Okay. And I believe your testimony was that these rules are going to require people to plug wells.
I think it will, that is the effect. Yes.
And so
it won't require them to,
correct.
but it will force them to.
What's the difference between forcing and requiring?
Requiring is a regulatory action or a legal action. Forcing is a businessman making a decision that he's got to plug.
Well, at any rate, an operator producing less than 180 days could go above 180 and that well wouldn't be marginal, correct?
That is correct.
Okay. There was some discussion about release of financial assurance. Would you agree the Oil and Gas Act does allow, and in fact require OCD to release bonds at the appropriate time and not only in the event that they're plugged?
That's the only time the statute says that the OCD can release a bond is
Okay.
after the plugging has been performed according to the rules then in effect.
Mr. Hall, I'm wondering, you still have 15 minutes, but I'm wondering if this would be a good time for a break.
Whatever pleases the commission is fine with me.
All righty, let's come back at 11. And again, you have 15 minutes left. from the break, please. All right. When we broke, Mr. Hall had 15 minutes left of his 45. Go ahead, Mr. Hall.
Thank you, Madam Hearing Officer. Mr. Ezzell, I think we were starting to talk about financial assurance a little bit. Is it your contention that OCD cannot release a bond unless a well is plugged?
I believe that's what the statute says.
Okay. Which statute?
The Oil and Gas Act.
Okay. Just wondering if you had one in mind, because I think what you're talking about is 7214 relating to financial assurance. If you could, I'm going to highlight this last sentence there and ask if you could please read that.
The Oil Conservation Division shall release financial assurance when it is satisfied that the conditions of the financial assurance have been fully performed.
So that doesn't mention plugging, does it?
Not directly, no.
Okay. So is there another statute that you're getting, that you're referring to?
Well, on a plugging bond, that is the condition of the financial assurance, is that the well be plugged.
Right, but that wasn't my question, was it? I didn't limit that to plugging bonds. I said bonds. And so if you'd like to correct your understanding, that's fine.
My understanding of what?
Do you still stand by your statement that only a bond can only be released in the event a well is plugged? That was my question, and you said yes. That's what the statute requires.
And
so I'm asking you.
And if the condition of the bond was the plugging of the well.
Okay, did you understand my
limitation.
question? Just please pay attention to my question. It does not have the word plugging bond, okay?
That is correct.
All right. My question is, do you maintain that OCD can only release a bond of any kind in the event that a well is plugged?
They can only release a plugging bond after the well has been plugged. What other bonds are you talking about?
Do you maintain that can OCD release a bond when a well is transferred amongst operators?
The bond is generally transferred to the well. I guess, I think the OCD probably has the authority to enter into a new bond if the selling party was up under a blanket bond and the buying party was going to be a one well bond. That would require a new bond.
Did you understand my question?
I think I answered your question.
Does OCD release bonds when operatorship of a well is transferred?
They have the authority to, especially if the bond is not transferred.
And so that's an example of a bond being released even when a well is not being plugged, correct?
Well, it's not so much being released as it is being replaced.
Do you agree this highlighted sentence here does not say anything about plugging?
I agree.
Okay, so would you agree that in the event a marginal well rule is passed, that if the conditions of that bond are satisfied, regardless of plugging, it can be released? Reading that line right there, that would be compliant with that statutory authority.
If it is a plugging bond.
Would you agree that? Okay. Now, Ms. Fox asked you a little bit about waste. I think your testimony focused on underground waste. Would you agree with that?
Oh, no.
I'm sorry, I didn't understand.
No.
No, that's not what you focused on?
Economic waste, the drilling of unnecessary wells, specifically underground waste in caused by premature plugging. But no, there's more than one definition of waste.
Well, my question was, you would agree your testimony focused on underground waste, correct?
I talked about economic waste as well.
Well, let's just pull it up. Um, 70-2.3, correct? That's the waste statute you're referring to and citing there?
That's the definition of underground waste, yes.
And so where you have to point to me in your testimony, and I'm happy to shift it around, where you talked about all these other kinds of waste.
I talked about the economic waste and the drilling of unnecessary wells yesterday in my live testimony, not in my written.
Do you agree the statute also defines surfaced waste?
Oh, yeah.
Do you agree that excess production beyond the reasonable market demand may be waste?
Yes.
Are you aware that unauthorized venting or flaring of natural gas is prohibited as waste?
Yes.
Are you aware that 60% of orphan wells observed by OCD are venting natural gas?
I cannot answer that.
Do you have any reason to dispute that?
I assume I could confirm it with independent research, but
Do you have any reason to dispute that, sir?
I have no reason to dispute it or agree with it.
So that would be 60% of orphan wells are wasteful, committing waste under the statute, correct? If that percentage is correct.
Yes.
And so you would agree waste is a little more complicated than just produce all you can, wouldn't you?
Well, absolutely.
Okay. I'll pass the witness. Thank you, Mr. Ezzell.
Thank you, Mr. Hall. Mr. Biernoff or Mr. Moore?
Good morning, Madam Hearing Officer. Ari Biernoff here for the Commissioner of Public Lands and the State Land Office. Good morning, Mr. Ezzell or Ezzell.
How are you?
I'm well. How are you today?
Good, thanks.
Okay. Wanted to just follow up on some of Mr. Hall's questions. You're not testifying in this proceeding on behalf of the Hinkle Law Firm, are you, Mr. Ezzell?
No, I'm testifying on behalf of IPA&M.
Okay, you're not speaking as a representative of Hinkle. You're giving your own personal opinion. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay, you're not here on behalf of any particular client of you or your firm, are you?
I am here on behalf of IPA&M, of which I am a member.
Okay, not any particular oil and gas operator or producer?
No.
Okay, just wanted to clear that up. You've talked in your oral testimony and also written in your pre-filed testimony about joint operating agreements, and you've provided a lot of detail on specific forms that the American Association of Professional Landmen have developed, right?
Yes.
Okay. Who are, generally speaking, who are the parties to a joint operating agreement?
The operators and the non-operators.
The OCD is not a party to joint operating agreements, right?
No.
The OCD does not approve or disapprove joint operating agreements, right?
No, it does not.
Okay. And the OCD, as a non-party, is not bound by the terms of joint operating agreements, right?
Absolutely correct.
Okay. In your written testimony, your direct testimony, you make an observation that I want to review and discuss with you. This is from page 46 of your written direct testimony. You state that on an overall basis, this, and I think you're referring to beneficial use, is a brand new legal concept as applied to oil and gas wells and operations. Beneficial use is a concept that is used and well developed in water law in New Mexico and other Western states. It has never been a concept in oil and gas law in New Mexico statutes, regulations, common law, or contracts. And that's the end of the quote. Do you stand by that testimony, Mr. Ezzell?
I think the term beneficial use is in the administrative code for maybe the definition of an inactive well. I can't remember, but I think the term beneficial use or beneficial purpose appears somewhere.
Okay, and in fact, the term beneficial use is in statute, isn't it?
I could not point you to the statute other than the water law.
The term beneficial use is in the Oil and Gas Act, section 70-2-3, isn't it?
Probably.
Do you want to look at it together?
I don't have it in front of me, but I believe you.
Oh, okay. And it's also, I think you noted in NMAC provisions in Title 19, Chapter 15, regulatory provisions that apply to the OCD, right?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Ezzell, in your written direct testimony, you state the following. This is from page 50 of your testimony. We all know the handful of operators out there who are giving industry a bad name in this regard. There must be other regulatory means of cracking down on these abuses. End of the quote. Mr. Ezzell, how many operators are out there approximately giving industry a bad name in New Mexico?
I couldn't put a number on it.
Okay, you use the phrase a handful. How many is that, more or less?
I can't give it a number.
Mr. Ezzell, if there were 50 or 100 bad operators flagrantly out of compliance with OCD rules and perhaps other obligations, would you consider that to be just a handful?
If there were 100, probably, no, I wouldn't consider that a handful. I use that term just to say that most of industry is responsible and that there should be a better way than to punish good operators with this rule. There should be a better way to get the enforcement done on the bad operators.
Okay, well, so before we move on from this point, I know you said that you don't think 100 would be a handful. Do you think 50 is a handful? Would you consider that to be a handful?
Yeah, probably. I think there was testimony there were over 600 operators in the state. I don't know that for a fact. I thought there was testimony to that somewhere.
Okay, it doesn't trouble you if there's in the neighborhood of 8 or 10% or more of operators in New Mexico who are out of compliance with OCD rules?
Well, it troubles me, but that's why we have the OCD and they have the enforcement powers they do.
Okay.
Sick them.
Okay, good. Well, that's good to hear. The passage that I read from your direct ends with the following statement: there must be other regulatory means of cracking down on these abuses. What are those other regulatory means? Have you given any thought to that?
Well, all the tools that the OCD has in the toolbox, the notice of violations, the, you know, you can get the attorney general to go after them. You've got the OCD has lots of tools to regulate the industry.
Is claiming bonds, financial assurance held by non-compliant operators one of those tools?
It should be. I don't know how often it's done. I think there's been testimony that it's problematic to get them collected.
Okay. Well, do you happen to know how many clients of the Hinkle law firm, your law firm, have had their bonds pulled by the state land office for their pervasive environmental non-compliance? Do you know what that number is?
I have no idea.
Okay. Mr. Ezzell, do you support additional legislative appropriations to give OCD the ability to develop additional alternative means of cracking down on the abuses that you describe committed by a minority of oil and gas operators on page 50 of your direct testimony?
Objection, vague.
I think
What was vague about it? I'm sorry.
He's asking about legislative solutions generally. There's no specific legislation that Mr. Ezzell's being asked whether he supports or proposes, assuming this is even remotely relevant. But I think he's entitled to know what the proposal is that he's supposed to support or not support.
Okay,
Well,
so
Madam
I thought, yeah,
I'm
Mr.
sorry.
Birnoff, I thought you described it, which was to get OCD more resources. But if you want to be a little more specific, perhaps Mr. Ezzell can answer it.
Well, so I'm not a legislator. I know that we have at least one legislator who was on the call on the hearing this morning, who happens to be married to Mr. Ezzell, and so I'm not in that position. I don't introduce legislation. I did think the question was clear, and I'll restate it. Mr. Ezzell, you reference other regulatory means of cracking down on abuses by bad operators, and I'm asking you, do you support additional resources through the legislature for OCD to identify and implement alternative regulatory means of cracking down on the abuses that you've referenced?
I think in your original question, you said appropriations, and I don't necessarily agree with just appropriating money. I would support legislation and hope I get a chance to in January. I would support legislation that uses the conservation fund and funds the reclamation fund, and not a dime is diverted to the general fund, which is what the legislature did years ago to balance the budget. I think the conservation fund needs to be used for its intended purpose, and that's funding the OCD and funding the reclamation fund.
Mr. Ezzell, are you in favor of, do you support additional FTE, that is additional staff for the Oil Conservation Division to develop and implement other regulatory means of cracking down on bad operators' abusive conduct?
Objection, relevance.
Madam Hearing, I'm sorry.
Yeah, go ahead, Mr. Birnoff.
Yeah, I think it's very appropriate, since Mr. Ezzell has mentioned that there are alternatives to dealing with the bad operator problem, to explore what those might be. And that's what I'm doing here.
That's what I thought. Please go ahead.
It's not my job or my place to tell the OCD how to do their business. I assume that the director knows the capabilities of his staff, and if they are not enforcing compliance because they don't have enough staff, they need to hire more people. And that's
Well,
what
I'm asking you,
the budget
Mr.
process is.
Mr. Ezzell, I'm asking you if you would support such an effort, since you have identified alternatives to this proposed rule. You're saying you don't support the rule. I think we've all heard you loud and clear on that score. and you're saying you recognize that there's a bad operator problem, and you're saying there's alternatives. So I'm asking you, would you support additional staff resources for OCD to implement your proposed alternatives?
If I were a litigator, I'd say asked and answered. But I think I just answered that. Yes, if the OCD cannot do the compliance it wants to because of lack of staff, they need to get more staff.
And you would support such an effort, is that right?
I just said that, yes.
Okay, good. Now it's been asked and answered, so thank you. Mr. Ezzell, let's keep moving through your direct testimony. I'm not going to read all of it because there's a lot of text, but on page 56, you are discussing the ability of OCD to consider regulatory violations by operators in other jurisdictions. And now I'll start reading it. As written, these provisions seem to suggest that the division in the first instance is empowered to decide whether the applicant or proposed new operator is out of compliance with some other state's or federal law. The suggested provisions do not require that, for instance, state or federal regulatory agency charged with enforcing those laws have found the applicant or new operator to be out of compliance, just that they are out of compliance. I do not know of any expertise within the division and would be surprised if it existed to interpret another state's laws and regulations or most federal oil and gas laws and regulations. I also question what resources would have to be devoted to that issue. Okay, I have a few questions for you about that testimony. And the first is it your position here in this proceeding that the Oil Conservation Division should ignore compliance violations that a particular operator, New Mexico operator, may have encountered in another state or with the United States government?
I think that is certainly a factor that the OCD could consider, but the way the proposed rule is written, it does not address the severity of the violation, whether the violation has been corrected. That's the problem I had with the unresolved adjudications issue that we talked about yesterday. I absolutely think that it is in the OCD's interest to investigate, but I don't think it's in the OCD's purview to be able to just thumbs up or thumbs down someone that wants to do business in New Mexico.
Well, let's explore that a little bit further. You said that it's a factor that's reasonably considered by OCD, the compliance or non-compliance of companies in other states or with respect to the federal government. And then you also said, but it's not something that OCD should give a thumbs up or thumbs down. Help me understand that gap between it being a factor, non-compliance in other jurisdictions being a factor, but not being something that OCD can take any action on.
Well, to the extent that the OCD is determining a bond amount on the blanket plugging bond for the TA wells, then I would think that the OCD would certainly want to investigate the operator's history elsewhere. I do not want to see a situation created when all of our environmentalist friends will start running around the country trying to find violations so that they can turn them into the OCD to get OCD to try to come down on somebody.
Mr. Ezzell, is it your view that anyone who wants to operate oil and gas wells in the state of New Mexico should be allowed to do so regardless of their compliance track record?
If they are adequately bonded, yes. As I told Mr. Hall, I'm a free market guy, and I don't think, bad operators will be bad operators and they will fail. And, but I don't think that the government should be able to say, you cannot do business in this business in our state.
Okay, so just to be clear, an operator like Cano Petro that leaves behind scores or more of inactive wells, if it comes back from bankruptcy or finds new venture funding, can resume operating in New Mexico from your point of view. That's not a problem.
If they are adequately bonded and the OCD has the ability to enforce their compliance rules, then yes.
Well, so
They should
let's
be allowed.
Okay, and I'm sorry for interrupting you. I didn't realize you were still answering. Mr. Ezzell, what does adequate bonding look like for a company like Cano Petro? Your testimony from a minute ago is that a company that's left behind a very large number of inactive wells unplugged should still be allowed to operate as long as there's adequate financial assurance. So what is adequate?
$250,000 statewide bond, or just the bonds that are in the statute.
Okay, a $250,000 statewide bond. Cano Petro operated scores of wells, and let's say that it wants to do so again. And you're aware of what average plugging costs are according to your own testimony and other IPA&M witnesses' testimony, right?
I have learned that there is no agreement on average plugging costs, but I know that the 250,000 bond would not cover all of the Cano wells. But if they came back, well, they're not going to come back into the state because you guys would be able to do your enforcement against them. And so I don't really think that that's a good example to use.
Well, do you have another example in mind of an operator who has left behind a large number, and let's say for purposes of discussion, we're talking about a few dozen or more inactive wells unplugged and their sites unremediated? Do you have an alternative example that you'd like to discuss?
Well, in that situation, again, we've already discussed the fact that the conservation tax has been collected from even the bad operators, because you can't dodge the tax that is withheld basically at the wellhead. And so if that money were used as it was intended, there would be adequate funding to cover the type of wells you're talking about when an operator disappears.
So I just want to, okay.
Sorry.
I just want to make sure that I understand you, Mr. Ezzell. Whether we're talking about Cano, Petro, or another bad operator, if you think of an example, let me know. I will do the same. Whether we're talking about Cano or somebody else, a company, as you see it, can leave behind a multi-million-dollar compliance problem, reconstitute or emerge from bankruptcy or find new investment, return to active operations in New Mexico, operate scores of wells or more, and that's okay as long as there's a $250,000 bond in place, because money's collected through the tax that you described, the conservation tax that you referenced, will pick up the difference. Is that right?
I think that is the best scheme. I think it is unfortunate that situations like Cano even occurred in the first place, because all of their wells didn't just become out of compliance overnight. And that's why I have testified that I would support the OCD in vigorously enforcing the rules. And I think the rules that we have in place now are adequate.
Well, okay, thank you. That was actually a question I had for you, and you've answered it. So thank you for reading my mind. We can look at page 58 of your direct testimony, and you state the following: if this commission determines it has the authority to adopt such a policy, and in parentheses, I do not think it does, and agrees that some risk-based approach is needed, arbitrary numbers like 15% marginal wells do not assess any risk. That can only be done by looking at individual operators. That's the end of the quoted passage. My question for you, Mr. Ezzell, is do you support OCD undertaking an analysis of the risk profile of individual operators? You say here that can only be done by looking at individual operators. Do you support that kind of an operator by operator individualized analysis?
On existing operators or prospective?
Well, let's start with existing operators. Do you support an analysis of individual operators' risk, compliance history, whatever else you have in mind when you say that a risk-based approach is possible?
So I'm sorry, I thought you were through.
Go ahead and answer.
Okay. If the OCD is doing its job and has the manpower to do its job, then that is already occurring. That's what they do. That's an assessment of the risk. They look, the field inspectors do what they do. They go and inspect. And if it is a minor violation, generally fixed with a phone call. If it's more serious, then hopefully the OCD is able to pursue it, and that operator will not turn into a Cano.
But again, to be clear, your view is that $250,000 is the most that any operator, regardless of compliance behavior, that's the most that they should be required to bond with OCD, right?
That's what the statute says.
But I'm asking you about what your view is of what's adequate, because we've been talking about what's adequate. Is $250,000 adequate for any operator?
I think yes.
Okay. And would you, Mr. Ezzell, would you support, you mentioned manpower as a consideration. If OCD needed additional staff resources to undertake this very granular risk assessment, would you support OCD receiving those additional resources from the legislature?
As I've already stated, I would support their receipt of those additional funds from the use of the conservation tax.
Okay.
Everybody has said time and time again that the oil and gas industry needs to clean up its own mess. The oil and gas industry, by paying the conservation tax for the life of a productive well, is prepaying a fund to clean up its mess.
And what if there's not enough, okay, Mr. Ezzell, what if there's not enough money in the fund to pick up and cover the cost of outstanding plugging, remediation, and reclamation activities? We heard in public comment this morning from one commenter who said that there's a significant shortfall between what's in the fund and what's needed to actually do the work. If there is such a shortfall, let's assume the commenter is right for the time being, what then? Where do those additional resources come from?
Madam Hearing Officer, I ask that the witness be allowed to complete his answer before Mr. Biernoff interrupt and pose a new question.
All right, thank you. Go ahead, Mr. Ezzell.
The oil and gas industry pays over $100 million a year in conservation tax. If it all was funneled to pay for the operations of the OCD and to fund the reclamation fund, that's over $1 billion in 10 years.
Okay, Mr. Ezzell, you're not
That's
answering
plenty,
my question.
that's plenty of money.
Mr. Ezzell, you've made this point several times, and it's not responsive to my question, so I am going to need to interrupt you, and I'm going to remind you of what my actual question was and ask you to answer it. My question was, assume for the moment, I'm not asking you to agree that it's true, but assume for the discussion that what the commenter this morning said is true, and that there is indeed a shortfall between what is available in the fund and the total cost of addressing inactive wells, remediation that needs to be done, etc., cleanup. How does the shortfall get filled? Where does that money come from?
I think I've answered that.
I haven't heard an answer, Mr. Ezzell.
I want it to come from the collection of the conservation tax and the appropriate use. I don't want a dime of the conservation tax going to the general fund, which is what's happening to it now. That's why there is a shortfall. If the shortfall continues, the conservation tax is collected every month. And the reason that the result of having a shortfall will not be that wells won't get plugged and sites remediated. It will just mean they won't get that done as fast. It will cause a delay.
I want to make sure I understand your answer. Are you testifying, Mr. Ezzell, that money that should be going to well plugging and spill remediation and related activities is instead, from the conservation tax that's collected, is instead going to the general fund, and you believe that to be a problem? Is that your testimony?
That is my testimony.
Okay. Mr. Ezzell, on page 58 of your direct testimony, you're discussing the 15% threshold. That's the context. And here's the statement that you make. In my testimony already, I have described situations why an operator might want to have inactive wells or marginal wells in their portfolio because of future development plans. Do you have any idea? Do you have either a precise number or an approximate number of how many of the oil and gas companies that are out of compliance with OCD rules who have made this argument? Do you have any idea of the number, or let's say the percentage of oil and gas companies who say, in response to a compliance demand, we have future development plans for these wells?
No, I have no idea how many or what percentage.
Okay. Do you have, you reference here, I don't know if you have a specific company in mind, because you go on to say, I'll quote, you may be looking at an operator with a very strong balance sheet and has a significant portion of highly productive wells in its portfolio, but has marginal wells for reasons of, for instance, forming a unit. That operator does not seem to pose any danger of default to the state of New Mexico. End of the quote. Do you have a specific operator or operators in mind? That is, when you refer to companies that have a lot of inactive or marginal wells, but that don't seem to pose a risk to the state, who are you thinking of there?
I was not thinking of anyone in particular. I was describing a situation where an operator was well funded, had lots of capital, and good wells and bad wells. And they might want to hang on to the bad wells when secondary recovery and tertiary recovery come back into vogue.
There's not secondary and tertiary recovery happening now?
There is. But
What do you,
I think most of the activity is in the shale plays.
okay. How does the Oil Conservation Division make a determination if an operator has a number of inactive wells or marginal wells? How does the Oil Conservation Division discern between an operator that has a great balance sheet and real bona fide assets versus an operator that is just blowing smoke at everybody and trying to avoid plugging or other cleanup obligations? Do you have any thoughts on that?
Well, I think the OCD should have the ability to use a little bit of discretion in its enforcement. And, you know, again, depending on the severity of the violation, but the OCD already knows who the good guys are and who they are and who the bad guys are.
Mr. Ezzell, you reference balance sheets, and I agree that that's can be a significant piece of information. Do you think a company's and operators' balance sheets should be made public so that OCD or other parties who have a vested interest in whether that company operates here in New Mexico have an understanding of the company's financial strength?
Well, on the public companies, it already is published in annual reports, things like that. As far as a small independent, I do not think that the public should be able to see their balance sheets or financial information.
What about the OCD?
Same answer. No.
So if the balance sheet is a secret that only the operator and its investors, if there are any, get to know about, how can Oil Conservation Division or any other interested party determine whether an operator with a lot of inactive or marginal wells has a strong balance sheet or doesn't?
Well, that's where the discretion in enforcement would come in, because if they have all these inactive wells, the OCD has the tools to cite them for violations. And you will almost immediately know their financial capability if they comply with the enforcement actions or pay their fines on time, whatever is done. The OCD will know that.
Okay. Mr. Ezzell, I appreciate your time and your testimony today. Madam Hearing Officer, I don't have any more questions for Mr. Ezzell this morning.
Thank you very much, Mr. Biernoff. Let's see. I don't believe we have Ms. Nanasi with us. Mr. Maxwell is at the polls today. Mr. Rankin, do you have questions?
Nothing for me. Thank you, Madam Hearing Officer.
All right. EOG is monitoring. Mr. Suazo, do you have questions?
Just a couple of questions, Madam Hearing Officer. Mr. Ezzell, good morning.
Good morning.
Mr. Biernoff with the Land Office asked you, and don't let me misstate your testimony, but I think generally speaking, you stated that generally you're not opposed to bonds in excess of $250,000 for certain operators that are problematic under the blanket bond structure, correct?
Yes. Objection leading.
Yeah, please avoid that, Mr. Suazo.
I'll move on. But it is your testimony in this proceeding that the commission and the division do not have the statutory authority to increase bonds beyond 250,000, correct?
Objection leading.
Would you turn those into questions?
I'm confirming his testimony and what he said, and he can say yes or no.
It's true.
I do not think that the division or the commission has the authority to increase bonds outside of the limitations of this Oil and Gas Act.
And to do that, your testimony is that an act of the legislature would be required, correct?
Yes.
No further questions.
All right, thank you. Mr. Cloutier, do you have redirect?
Just a couple, Madam Hearing Officer. If we could pull up the Alexander exhibit, was it 13? Ms. Tripp, if she could have authority to share. All right, well, we'll go with this question first. Okay, there we go. There's a sentence below the phrase years before return to activity. Can you read that sentence?
The one beginning with histogram?
Yes, sir.
Histogram of length of time inactive prior to return to activity across a sample of wells that reactivated following 12 plus months of no production.
Do you know what that sample of wells was that Mr. Alexander used?
I have no idea.
Did you hear Mr. Alexander testify that he knew what the sample of wells was?
I did not hear that testimony.
Thank you. Now, if we could just go to the statute that Mr. Hall was asking you about. You see the highlighted language at the top talks about the instruments of financial assurance being conditioned that the well be plugged and abandoned.
That is correct.
Do you understand section 70-2-14 to require any other sort of bonding besides the financial assurance for plugging and abandoning a well?
No, it is just plugging bonds.
All right. That's all my questions, Madam Hearing Officer.
All right, thank you, Mr. Cloutier. Commissioner Ampoma, do you have questions of Mr. Ezzell?
Yes, I do have a few. Mr. Ezzell, thanks so much for your testimony today. So I'm Dr. Ampoma from New Mexico Tech. So I do have a few questions for you. So if we can bring up your slides, your direct slides. And I want to start from page, slide number 5. Number 5. Yeah, right there. So in here, you're talking about, and let's put aside whether the commission do not have authority.
Right.
I mean, the lawyers will take care of that. Yeah. So in here, you describe the factors that needs to be considered when the commission, or let's say OCD, is more or less making rule for a bond or financial assurance. Can you tell the commission how you will quantify the cost associated with the age of the well?
The age of the well will directly affect the cost to plug. And it also will directly affect the ease with which plugging can occur, because older wells are more likely to suffer from corrosion and all sorts of other types of damage until you get into one. And I'm not an engineer, so I don't know why I'm telling this to you, because you know way better than I do. But you don't know whether rods are parted. You don't know whether there are holes in the casing. But with older wells, that's more likely than with newer ones.
Yeah, so let's go to slide number 7, and then I'll ask you, can you provide to the commission the range of age of wells, the range of age of wells that you will classify as a high risk?
Are you asking the age?
Yes, age range. Because you said newer and then older. Now, when you say newer and older, what is the range for the older, which you were saying that those could be a high risk that we should pay more attention to?
I've not really given that much thought, but I would say if the well was drilled before 1970, then it's probably going to have a much greater chance of being a high risk.
So you can see how difficult the commission's job is,
Yes.
right? Because when all these three factors are provided, and if we are to more or less quantify them and use that to come up with a single number, or let's say risk base, you can imagine how difficult that is. So 1970, then you're saying that a well that is probably been in operation for about 55 years.
Yes, sir.
One witness from IPNM, I believe, said 40 years.
Okay. Like I said, it's not something that I had given much thought to, but I'm happy that I was that close to what IPA said.
So let's go to slide number 28. Yeah, so slide number 28. My question to you is, so you're saying that everyone, if produced to avoid bonding. Now, your first point, you're saying everyone, including state, gets less revenue over life of the well. Have you done any independent analysis to support this claim, or is it just based on a hypothetical situation?
I have not done any independent analysis. That is just
So there has been a lot of
my opinion based on my experience.
based on your experience. Okay. So there has been a lot of discussions, even with regards to the marginal wells, if the commission can consider some exceptions to the marginal wells. In your testimony, you describe how, let's say, if a well is producing and the commodity price is so low, you made an argument whether the well is going to be produced or not. Now, can you quantify the impact of economics? Let's say, can you give some suggestions with regards to how that description of the commodity prices can be incorporated as an exception into the marginal definition?
In general, I think that all of the royalty owners, state, federal, fee, understand that they will benefit more if production is decreased in times of poor price and brought back on later. I mean, that's been manifested by, we had a statute that is no longer, I don't know if it's a statute or not, but we had a policy in New Mexico on state trust lands that it was decided that they would rather, in low price environments, they would rather have the revenue later, even though it would cause hardship up front. The stripper well royalty rate was the federal effort to continue to produce. We have similar activity in New Mexico where you can apply to the land commissioner to reduce your rate if your wells are approaching uneconomic status. So I think it is in everybody's interest to get all the production you can out of every well bore, especially in times when well, I lost my train of thought.
Yeah, I think I'm good with, I think your point is well made. So you believe that the commission can include something in terms of economics to give OCD the flexibility to make that determination when that instance happens.
Yeah, I would not disagree with that. Yes.
Thank you for your time. No further questions.
Thank you. Commissioner Bloom, do you have questions?
I do, Madam Hearing Officer. Thank you. Good morning. It's still just morning here for a little bit longer. Mr. Ezzell, thank you for your time on the stand today. I love history and appreciated hearing from you on the development of JPAs over the decades. I heard something similar at the annual conference of the National Association of Petroleum Accountants in Dallas this year, and this filled in some of the other pieces. So I appreciated that, and also just wanted to thank you and your family for your service to the state. I know that having a state legislator in the family is a sacrifice of time and money. And I've come in front of your wife before, and as you know, she is thorough and tough.
Welcome to my world.
Mr. Ezzell, did you read the much discussed here LFC report that was part of the applicant's pre-hearing statement?
No, I did not.
Okay, I'll read you something from it. It says, quote, "The Federal Environmental Protection Agency estimates annual methane emissions from the nation's inactive and unplugged oil and gas wells are comparable to adding an additional 2 million gas-powered cars to the road." End quote. Is that methane a wasted resource?
Yes.
And we heard from the OCD, and you and Mr. Hall discussed this as well, but the OCD has said that 60% of inactive wells in New Mexico leak methane. Is that fugitive methane a waste?
Yes.
Does the OCC regulate waste?
Yes.
Does proper plugging stop methane leakage and waste?
Proper plugging would stop leaks. Yes.
Okay. And would it stop the waste that is associated with fugitive methane emissions?
Yes.
Mr. Ezzell, the LFC study goes on to say the following, quote, "A 2011 study by the Groundwater Protection Council, an organization whose members are state groundwater regulators, found inactive and unplugged wells were responsible for 22% of oil and gas related groundwater contamination incidents in Ohio and 14% in Texas over a 16-year study period. Improperly plugged or unplugged wells have also been implicated in surface contamination incidents, including recently near the Texas-New Mexico border, where the wells have served as conduits for large leaks of produced water and hydrocarbons. Unplugged or improperly plugged wells can also leak gases, including hydrogen sulfide, which is toxic and highly corrosive, and methane, which is both a potent greenhouse gas and explosive," end quote. Mr. Ezzell, it's my understanding that the OCC is also charged with protecting the environment, water, and public health. Do you agree with that?
Yes.
Okay. I just wanted to get through some of these questions about, does the OCC have the ability to and the authority to regulate here? And of course, I believe, given issues of methane waste and threats to the environment, public health, and water, that we do. Mr. Ezzell, I believe your rebuttal spends time looking at the relationship between the OCC and the legislature, correct?
Yes.
When I looked at the first document filed in this case, I see June of 2024. That's when the applicants made their application. Does that sound right to you?
Yes.
So that was last year, about 16 months ago. And during that time, from mid-January to mid-March of this year, 2025, the state had a 60-day legislative session, correct?
Yes.
So our legislators had 6 months to introduce a bill on this topic if they'd chosen, correct?
Yes.
So the legislature could have, for example, stopped cold this effort here by, say, passing legislation that would have prohibited the OCC from setting any new bonding levels. Is that right?
That is correct. They could
But
have.
the legislature did not legislate in this area in 2025, did it?
No.
The three commissioners here were, were designated by the governor and or her administration, in my case, the Commissioner of Public Lands. Would you agree that these two duly elected officials, the governor and the Commissioner of Public Lands, can task their administrations to pursue rulemaking?
Yes, they can.
And that our duties include rulemaking on the OCC?
The Oil and Gas Act gives the OCD and the OCC limited authority to do rulemakings.
I agree. Do you also agree or have knowledge that the public has the right to petition the OCC to do rulemaking?
I don't know where that authority comes from, but I agree with the public
Yes,
being
that's
able to do that.
Yes, that's the basis of course, of the applicants coming from the public and doing this. And would you agree that they have the right to do this regardless of what the legislature is doing?
Yeah, they have the right to do anything. They're not restricted by the legislature at all.
Yes, thank you. You mentioned the land office and the permanent fund in your SIR rebuttal, and I agree with you, sir, that land grant permanent fund monies can't be spent directly on well plugging and reclamation. But my initial comments were meant to be more along the lines that the land office has worked for over 100 years to generate funds for its beneficiaries, and that ultimately, money for the beneficiaries in the state, and it would be unfair and unjust for the state to have to spend a large percentage of that sum on cleaning up orphaned and or unplugged inactive wells on throughout the state. Does that make sense?
I agree with that wholeheartedly. Okay. That's why I would like to see the conservation fund used for its intended purpose.
Okay. Mr. Ezzell, are you aware of the land office's land maintenance fund?
Tangentially, I know there is one. I have no idea how it's funded or how it's spent.
Yeah, so this gets kind of arcane, but the land grant permanent fund, as you know, collects the royalties from oil and gas for the state, and it's invested by the state investment council. And then the legislature can spend 6% of the 5-year rolling average. The land maintenance fund is money that comes in from renewable resources. That includes renewable energy, rights of ways, and oil and gas lease sales. We can continue leasing land as leases come back to us, and so that money goes into the maintenance fund and it's immediately distributed to the beneficiaries. This year, we're 4 months into the fiscal year, and we've already earned close to $500 million for this fund. Do you know that the state land office has a reclamation fund that takes money from the maintenance fund to clean up messes on state trust land?
That is my understanding, yes.
Yeah. So then the land office, will continue to spend beneficiary money to clean up messes made by its lessees, correct?
Yes.
Yeah. Would you agree with me if I told you that the land grant permanent fund is somewhere between 34 billion and 36 billion dollars today, somewhere in that area?
Yes.
Are you aware of the Center for Applied Research's 2021 Bonding Financial Assurances Gap Study?
No, I am not.
I believe applicants may have mentioned that, or the Vertex study that went into it in their pre-hearing statement. But that study by the Center for Applied Research said that in 2021 there was a bonding gap of $5 billion on state trust land. So today with inflation and the higher inflation we've seen in the oil patch, I think then certainly higher than the inflation elsewhere. I believe we're looking at a bonding gap of probably closer to $7 billion. You take, you compare the 7 billion to 35 billion, and that'd be about 20% or one fifth of everything that the permanent fund has done over the past 100 years. Is that right?
That's correct.
So these were where my concerns come from with relationship to the permanent fund and the liabilities that are out there. So I just want to spend a little time on that. I think just lastly, I believe you're aware that the land office has instituted about 4 years ago an accountability and enforcement program to get orphan wells and inactive wells P&A'd on state trust land. Are you aware of that?
Yes, I am.
And I think you may have represented some companies that have been involved with the land office related to some of these issues, correct?
Not to plugging, no. I have
How about
represented.
related to their bonds?
I have been involved in a case where a couple of state leases were terminated, and the reason for the termination being that the lessee had not posted a surface damage bond as required by the statute, but the statute and the state land office regs say that damage bond is supposed to be posted prior to the lessee doing anything on the lease. And in the case I was in, that portion of the lease had never been drilled, and the lessee had never set foot on it.
Okay. Yes, there is that. Yeah, sorry, go ahead. I didn't want to cut you off.
Oh, no, I'm through.
Okay. Yeah, I think, as you know as well, the commissioner asked us to review all 6,000 leases at the time on state trust land to see if they were bonded, and we found that about 1/8, some 800 wells were not bonded. And I think, as you know, ultimately we only canceled less than a couple dozen, and we worked with companies and gave some people a little bit extra time to actually get their bonding in place. I don't know if you've seen any of the news releases or stories in the press, but we've had to work with and sometimes sue operators and lessees on state trust land to get them to plug what is now 750 wells P&A under this program. Are you aware of that?
Not the number. I did not know that.
Are you aware that we still have maybe that many wells left to get cleaned up on state trust land?
I did not know that, but I do not dispute it.
Mr. Ezzell, thank you for your time. I don't have any further questions for you.
All right. Thank you,
you.
Commissioner Bloom.
Thanks so much.
So Chair Chang, we are past time when we usually take a lunch. Are you
do
going
not
to
have any questions anyway.
You do not. All right.
There you go.
So we can excuse Mr. Ezzell, it sounds like. Thank you very much, Mr. Ezzell. Let's come back at 1:15 from lunch.